Hey, it's Nick, live from the office once again, with another big little filmmaking tip for your films so that you can improve your films. And this, I'm sad to say, is more of a complex subject, but in its core, it's very simple, and that is books. Books are very important to being an effective filmmaker. And I think it's important to read on the subject of not only cinematography, and not just filmmaking in general or directing, but also about photography. Photography is a field that has been around much longer and much stronger than cinematography. There are a lot more people who are able to afford small cameras, 35mm cameras, and definitely now with digital cameras, it's very cheap to just go out there and get a camera. And because of the fact that it's always been cheaper to be a still photographer, there are tons of books on the subject, and those specifically transfer to the world of cinematography and filmmaking very easily. So one of the first things that I'm saying is, if you're looking for reading material and you really want to learn more about cinematography or filmmaking, because I concentrate more on cinematography because I myself am a cinematographer, so I think about that much more. So if you're wondering more about the technical aspects of this, I would really go to photography books. And the only difference between photography and what a cinematographer does is that a photographer sets up a single shot, or even sometimes multiple shots, and a cinematographer does the exact same thing, but does it at 24 pictures a second. That's the only difference. No difference at all between what we as cinematographers and photographers do. We just take more photos per second and then show them in a row to simulate motion. So, I know the last time I talked about light. This time I'm talking about education. So, if you want to learn about nuts and bolts, the very basics of what makes our art possible, what are some of the basic rules so that you can break them, and what are the different ways in which you can do these wonderful things with cameras. And I'm trying to keep things simple, of course, so I only have one book on my list which is more advanced. The other books are very understandable, have very good understandable language, and you'll be able to easily go through these books and then apply the different things that they talk about to your films. So, the very first book that I'm going to talk about actually has nothing to do, it doesn't have nothing to do, but it isn't specifically targeted towards cinematography or even filmmaking. So what is this book? And it does have a direct link to them, but it's in a different way. It's a little bit different, but there are things that you should know, that you have to know to make an effective film, because you should know what your tools are. In my last video I said that the most important tools to a cinematographer are light, being able to block light, being able to bounce light, and being able to make light. Now, tools in the trade of the cinematographer to either directly influence those separate things, which are blocking light, making light, bouncing light. I think those are actually it. I'm probably leaving something out. What is it? Yeah. You need to make light. You need to bounce light. You need to be able to block light. Yeah, somewhere in that range, whatever. But I think you know what I'm talking about. You need to be able to, one, control your environment and then light your environment. And then there are very many tools involved in the surrounding of making these things possible. And what those things are called, or they're called grip. They're grip equipment and also electrical equipment. But I'm going to group grip and electrical into one main area. I'm just going to say that they're grip for now, just to make it simple, everyone. Okay, so, and any electricians out there, don't get mad at me for saying this, but I'm just trying to make things simple for everyone. So the very first book that I'm going to talk about here is called the Grip Book. Now, in the down there in the description, you'll have to look at the description. There will be a link to the Amazon page for the Grip Book, which is written by Michael Yuva, which is a very wonderful book. This is a book that will definitely be able to give you the basic information so that you can go onto a set and know what things are and why they're there, why they're set up in a certain place, and what's going on. So, the Grip Book by Michael Yuva is my very first book that I'm talking about here. It's a very great book, and it also includes some side notes on things like definitely set etiquette. I'm not going to go into these things, but, okay, so here I'm going to say that Michael Yuva is a very good writer. He's a grip himself. He runs a grip company, has many trucks, and he kind of built his grip company from the ground up. He's very good at what he does, and he knows what he's talking about. And so I very, very much would like you to go out and read his book, because he, in very simple terms, explains what things are, what they're used for, and then you yourself are going to be much more well educated about what's going on a film set. And at the same time, you might read information on some of the professional equipment, and you might have small ideas about, well, maybe I can build it and build it cheaper. And that's what's important, is you don't always have to use the professional equipment. Sometimes you can get away with, like, say, the most simplest of things, like a cuckolorus. A cuckolorus is just a piece of some kind of material that has patterns cut out in it so that you can shine light through it and then have a pattern somewhere inside the set. A very simple solution to something like that, which I believe Michael Yuva explains very quickly, very succinctly, in a very straightforward manner, is that you can just use the branch of a tree in front of a light to make a cuckolorus. But of course, that's been a long-standing knowledge thing within the industry. Everyone knows that you can do that to make a cuckolorus. These things are within that kind of book. Now, the next book that I'm going to tell you that will be a very good read, a very simple read, and will give you tons of nuts and bolts, not just on the grip side, because grip is more of the how things happen, or how you can make them happen. There's less theory involved in grip. Grip is more about making it happen. Grips on a set are the guys that make a film happen. But, on the other hand, this book, which is called 8mm / 16mm filmmaking, is a very old book. It's out of print now, actually. But you can get it so cheap because it's an old book, and a lot of people don't know about this book. Right now on Amazon, I believe you can buy it for $1.50. Then, of course, you have to add in shipping costs. But that makes it under $5 for this 272 pages, I believe, book on all of the basics of filmmaking, all of the nuts and bolts of like what kind of lights you should use, to like how much light should be in a basic 3-point setup. It explains blocking. It just explains all of the like very basics of filmmaking, and it's a very good beginner's book. It very much shows every single little thing that you really need to know to just jump right into it. So between those two books, you could actually make your own film, as long as you knew just a little bit of information on how to control your camera. So between those two books, I think you could actually be a very effective production assistant. If you just read those books and read them a few times over, you could very easily become a production assistant, so that you could start to apply that knowledge, and not only apply it, but start to realize its actual real-world effects, and be able to actually become a productive member of a film set. So if you're looking to break into the industry, I'd say grab those two books and then become a PA. And maybe even for free be a PA. I know a lot of people, they don't want to work for free, but guess what? That's how I got my start. I did tons of films for absolutely free. And that's how you break into something. And that's how you build up your skills, really, even if you're out of film school. I didn't go to film school, but I did tons of reading and tons of just doing for free films, being a PA or being camera operator, or so many other different aspects of the industry. So those two books, and then once you've read those books and maybe PA'd, I'm going to give a third book, which is a more advanced book, and will actually take multiple reads to bring in the knowledge within this book, because some of the language is even difficult to follow. I'll admit that right now. Even I still go through this book and question some of the things that it says, but it still has lots of really good information for the more advanced individual who has moved past that point of reading those two books, of being a PA on a set, maybe even organizing some of your friends to make a small short film. Finally, you can get this book, and it will explain a lot more of the theory behind being a cinematographer and a filmmaker. And this book is The 5 C's of Cinematography. And it's a very good book, but it can be a little bit of a taxing read. You really need to absorb yourself in those first two books, absorb yourself in doing films and making films, before you really are able to start understanding and implementing the concepts within the 5 C's of cinematography. So, I know this was a little bit more of a complex one today, because of course I'm asking you to read. You don't have to do these things. Some of the future Big Little filmmaking tips are going to be smaller, but I had exchanges in my comments in my last Big Little filmmaking tip segment, and I thought that it would be a good time to say the 3 books that I really think can help tons in your work. So check out those 3 books. Go down to the comments section. I'll give links directly to the Amazon.com pages for these books, and definitely the cheapest one is the 8mm/16mm filmmaking book. It is a great book. It'll cost you less than $5, and it will add a lot to what you're doing. You don't need to understand every concept in any of these books either. Just read it. Don't worry yourself over being perfect at knowing every single detail in some of these books. Just read through them, grab what you can, and then maybe later on down the road, after you've started to implement things, you might start to understand some of those things that you read, and you'll be able to go back and reread these books and start to understand more of the concepts behind it. Because truly, filmmaking is not something that you can learn out of a book. It's not something that you can learn from watching a video. It really truly is something that needs to have a combination of real world experience and book learning and or video watching. So check out those 3 books. I'm giving the Amazon links down in the comments section, so go ahead and do that. And you know what, while I'm thinking about it, you should, which site is it? It's one of these sites. You should really go and subscribe to my videos. I'll give more updates on Big Little Filmmaking Tips. This is part 3. I'm going to keep doing these. Some of my future videos, I already had a director of mine suggest that I should do one on what is called the line. That's going to be something in the future, and that's about how you place your camera, how you place your subjects, so that you don't confuse your audience. That will probably be my next one. So, I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed letting you know about the few books that I know that are very, very good for a beginner. Of course, the third one is just a little bit more advanced. The first 2, Michael Yuva's Grip Book, and the second one, 8mm/16mm filmmaking by, oh gosh, what is his name again? I'm going to feel really bad for, let me look on my, Henry Provisor. He really did a great job of explaining it. It is a long book at 272 pages, but all the information is very simply put down, and it's very readable, and it's very cheap. So between the Grip Book and the filmmaking book, you'll be able to be a production assistant. And then if you buy the 5 C's of Cinematography, you will definitely be able to advance your art. And as you work on sets, you will be able to understand some of the concepts that are put down in that book. So, thank you for watching. Thanks for the views. Go ahead and comment. Ask me what you want to see next. Of course, the next thing is going to be on the line. So, without further ado, in the words of my favorite YouTube musical artist, the ukulele, push the button.